So we are going to talk today about the end of tracking. It's still an interrogation point. So as you know, I love tracking. Now, so just a bit about me, for those who don't know. So I'm from France, like Cecilia would say. Living in Vietnam, I'm specialized on tracking, obviously, but I really love data. And as you all accepted my cookie. Welcome to the dark side. Is that what you gave us? So, thanks to that cookie, I have actually been able to know everything you've done for the last week. I've recorded everything. I know where you've been, who you've been talking to, who are your friends, what are the bad sentences you've done, when you swarm. And not only I will use it to blackmail, like Cecilia does too, usually, after Trusted Conf. But I always share the information with all my friends. So I will be sharing that information with a lot of people that will also use it to blackmail you. Welcome to the dark side. The thing is, that's what actually we've been done with tracking for years. We have taken for granted that people were okay with us grabbing the data and retargeting them and doing just like collecting information about people. So today, we're gonna talk about the impact of those 10 years or even more of collecting data without asking for consent. So we start with the user privacy and where it comes from. A quick introduction on what is a cookie and how it works. Then talk about user privacy, GDPR, some of the regulations across the world. And then ITP, and cover ad blocker and firewalls. And then we do an exercise of just trying to measure what are the actual impact of all of that on tracking and especially on advertisements. So basically what we do. So let's start with cookie. So what are cookies? Cookies are just like simple text file. That's every time you access a website, we create that small text and it will enable us to collect and track every single interaction and potentially, if you make the right tracking, let's track all the interaction that you do on site. So basically you go on your browser, we create a cookie, then we have different tags that will take the data, then send to the different analytics tool that you are using. And then when the user is doing what you are expecting them to do, bling, bling, you can calculate your return on investment and you are really happy. And if they don't convert, well, you can create, thanks to those cookies, you can create the audience. So just to give you an idea, the advertising feature of Google is tracking you across almost 9 million websites. And that's how they created the audiences that you can target with Google Ads. So they know your gender, your age, where you're from, what you like, and that's how we can, at the end, segment exactly and target the people we want. But the big problem with that is that we overkilled it, basically. We use it like so much that now we need new rules just happen and started to be created just to prevent that, because we were just like doing too much and collecting too much without actually asking for it. So that's why we need like GDPRs and that kind of regulations that forces us to do right. So if we go into user privacy and data regulation, the thing is we need to find that balance of collecting what we need to do our job, but at the same time respecting what the user is doing. So it's just a question of balancing the privacy versus what we want to do. So we like to see everything they do on site and we try. The only thing is, like, until now, we were just saying, well, they didn't tell me that they didn't want me to track everything they were doing, so I was doing it. It's kind of a, they don't say they don't want, I will do it. So now we start to have more and more, and like people get aware, they have this awareness about data privacy because of big things like Cambridge Analytica. So people realized when that happened that, like, oh, but Facebook knows everything about me. And it was kind of everybody knew, because you always like tick the small checkbox at the beginning, take everything about what I do. But because of that kind of data breach, users became more and more aware of that's my data. That's up to me to decide if you can use it or not. So, like Maria was presenting yesterday, I am marketing with trust is global. We are like across everything, but the thing is data regulations are too. So I just put a link here. You have on that page you have the map, and then you can just click on any country, and they will give you all the regulations about data for each of the country. But when it comes to regulation, I think Europe is an advance and is like leading the whole world towards respecting privacy and rights. So an immediate like impact on, for instance, on what I do is that we needed to transfer the ownership of the data collection to our clients. So we are not responsible for what they ask us to collect about their user. So right now, I never create an analytics property on behalf of the client account, and we should not, because the day GDPR sue them, they will sue us, not the client, because the client can say the ownership of that process that is collecting data is not me. I haven't signed up. I haven't checked all the, do you agree? So right now, every single time that I work with a client, I will ask them to create the GTM container, to create the Google Ads account, to create, so they check the box of, I will respect my users, basically. So I take as an example GDPR because it's the one that covers its best example, and that's the most complete regulation so far. So it's been released in May 2018. We were telling for years that it's going to happen and you need to be ready. We had this momentum in May where everyone was like, I need to do something. It's been years that they were telling, like, you need to think about what you collect, where you do it, how you do it, where you put it. And so here you have like the 7 points that you need to cover for GDPR. And one of them is, well, know what you do it, be transparent of what you collect and how you will be using it. So just as an exercise, privacy is something like really, well, everyone has a different opinion of what is privacy, and some people will share a lot of information about their own life, where others a bit more shy, which is like one step. So I don't know if the link is, so this is, I just took like 7 data points that we could be collecting. Just give it a try and find out which one is considered as personal data and that you cannot collect without the user consent and without telling them and without explaining what you will be doing with it. Yeah, so just, no, not all of them. So there are a few here that you can collect, but who has the guess on what could be tracked without consent? No, so cookie ID you can't without the consent.
What your registration number?
So company, you can. So the email, for instance, and the registration number, you can. But when you say that, it's the company number of the website you are on, not like any company number. So in marketing, we trust information. If I collect on the website the information about in marketing, we trust, or any email of type info@inmarketingwetrust.com.au, that I can collect and I can get that in GA. but I can collect, if you go on another website, I can't collect any information about your company. It's private. It's location is forbidden.
So there's just nothing on Google.
Well, the info at the company and the name, company registration, and that's all. That's the only two things we can collect. The IP, so now you are forced to, so you can't see IP, for instance, in Google Analytics, but you are forced to anonymize the last digit of it to make it force to.
Regardless of analytics, these IP addresses are tracked everywhere, all the time, every second. I mean, there are server logs everywhere filled with IP.
Yeah, but any user in Europe could ask you to access that information and ask you to delete.
Servers won't work without tracking it.
Yeah, but you don't. But that's where you need to explain on what you will be doing with the IP. So and that's something we discussed yesterday on what you collect and what you do with it. So some of the features that are really necessary, so like for logs or things, you will be able to do it. But then you don't use it for advertisement. You don't use that. That will be the collector. Yeah. I mean, collector, you actually, and in this stage could be collector, could be you as a processor too. So if you use that data for a mean that was not, if you were not supposed to do anything with that, if we start to use log file, for instance, to track, we are not really GDPR friendly. But when it comes to GDPR, and we're going to read all GDPR now, so GDPR is about data. It's not just about tracking. And if we look at tracking, it's actually 2 lines in the whole GDPR. And this year, so the application of GDPR on tracking is actually not GDPR. It's PECR. I'm going to present now. It's called the Privacy and Electronic Communication Regulations. So GDPR will say you need to manage your cookie, basically. And then PCIE is the application of that and how it translates on the tracking. So everything that is communication, so email, phone, messenger, and cookie are under e-privacy. And what it means for cookie is that we have to first ask for consent. So you can't track anything without the consent, like 0. Then you need to explain what you are doing with the data. And it has to be clear, and they said exactly, in plain language, so people can understand what you do with it. So let's not hide like it's a mandatory cookie, and then it's like for statistic, and then you use it for Google Ads. That's not plain language. Then you need to document it. So you need to be able to know what was the choice of each user. So only a few people here refuse my cookie, and I will remember. And then you can't limit the services you propose on your website based on the choice of the user. So anything that is the massive pop-up of give me my consent and you can't read what is behind is not GDPR, because you are forcing them to do the consent before they can even use the service you are proposing. So it's not only about asking, but it's also of not preventing users to use whatever you are proposing on your website. And then they can withdraw their consent. And that's something that and I discussed a lot with Barbara on that. I don't think we have any example of someone that actually proposed that properly. So everyone right now in the industry just hoping that nobody will ever say, I withdraw my consent. So when it comes to cookie, you can categorize them based on those 3 classifications. So either you go for duration, provenance, or purpose. If we go from a duration point of view, you will have cookies that are just for the session and others that are persistent. Persistent is more than a session. Now, any cookie that is persistent needs consent. So it means GA, it means Google Ads, it means Facebook, it means like every single tool that we use needs the consent of the user before we can do it. Now, the provenance, it changed a lot with ITP coming in. It used to be only for third party. So basically you were able to collect the data for you, but as long as you were not sharing with others, that was okay. But then every advertiser just changed from third party to first cookie, to first party, so they could still do the same thing, it's just they changed. So e-privacy had to update and say, well, any type of cookie, you are cheating, you are playing with us. Well, now it's every type of cookie. And then the purpose, so you have like necessary, so that would be like type of cookies that, I don't know, optimize the experience of the user, things like, but like really from a feature point of view.
Keeps the user logging.
Yeah, that kind of. So that you can do. And especially for the login, the user already give the, they already have an account, they already gave the consent, and just like keep me logged in, yes, then you will be able to create a cookie for that. Then preferences, I don't have an example like this, but like any choice that you give on the site so you don't see things, they will use a cookie to remember. But anything that is statistic, meaning GA is a statistic tool, or marketing, you need the consent. So the impact on that is that without consent, you can't use any of the tools that I put here, none of them. So when we go, for instance, on our own website, and we ask for the consent, like we have the banner at the bottom, unless the user click consent, we can't track anything, legally speaking. I cannot do better. Legally speaking, we can't do that. But then Australia is a bit like a, yeah, it's happening over there. It's in Europe. Yeah, never mind. Nobody is gonna. So it's just a matter of time before the same applies worldwide. So there are lots already in US that follows kind of the same restrictions than GDPR, but it's just a matter of time before the whole worldwide will ask for consent before you can even start tracking anything. So that's the first problem we have with tracking. Now there are others. Because of us trying desperately to track things, now we start to see this war between big brands like Apple versus Google, where they try to prevent each other on behalf of the user, saying like it's for user privacy, to protect users and therefore prevent tracking. So now I'm going to cover ITP, ad brokers, and firewalls. Who knows what ITP stands for? the kid in the first row.
Intelligent tracking protection.
Yeah.
Yes.
Prevention. Yeah. So it's a feature. So it's none of those logos, but I found. Well, that's how you get lost on the internet, basically. I open all the websites like. Oh, yeah, that's... So my favorite one is the this one, like the universe. Oh, anyway. So it's ITP is intelligent tracking prevention. So it's a privacy feature that has been developed by WebKit. WebKit is used by stuff, and then the other apps and select. No, well, Linux is, but mainly iOS and OS. So no, Firefox they have their own, but it's not called ITP. So well, they just changed the name, but it's basically the same thing. So ITP is not new. It's been it started in 2017, so it's been years that they are working on helping the user privacy situation that we're facing. So the first version was only affecting third-party cookies, but then people was like, okay, let's move to first-party cookie. So well, it took months, and then ITP changed, upgrade, and now it concerns all cookies. So the first 2.1 was like you could have cookies for a time span of 7 days. So we could track for 7 days the same user, meaning you could attribute a conversion for any of your campaign as long as you were in that window. ITP 2.2 went down to 24 hours. So unless the conversion happened in those 24 hours, you won't be able to attribute any conversion to any of your marketing campaign. Another implication of that is that since we can't remember the user, it means like if I go 10 times on the website in 10 days in a row, I will be 10 different users. So the implication of that is that audiences don't work anymore. Audiences don't work anymore because we don't, and especially for websites where the whole user journey takes like time, we won't be able to know in any tool for for people on Safari that it's actually the same person. So we just lost visibility on the whole funnel. Now we have one person that was like not aware of our brand and that just like read things, and then we have another person, but it might be the same, but we don't know. So we just lose everything. We are not user-centric anymore. We came back to session level. So unless it happened in that 5-minute window where they're on your site, you won't be able to know. And it's gonna get worse. Now it's 24 hours. The next version will be they are removing any parameter in URLs, meaning basically attribution won't work anymore in a couple of months. So any UTM parameters will be removed, any JPEG ID, any Facebook ID will be removed from the URL. So basically we'll have visibility just on impressions click, and then we don't know. We don't even know if they've been to our website. We won't be able to know that. So right now, in Chrome, in Opera, in Firefox, in Edge, and all the others, users can tick off tracking. So it takes a minute. You click here, and no cookie can be created.
For none of that is by default.
So Safari is going to be by default on the next version. So no, yeah, Firefox. Sorry, Safari is already. Firefox is following. Chrome is kind of a that's Google, so I think they will wait a bit. but yeah, so it's you can choose. So they give you the choice, like the same way you would do when you arrive on the site and you say I give consent to that, but not that, but on that. But the reality of it is that people will say no. They will take the strict thing and no cookie creation. No cookie creation, meaning we don't even see those users in any of our analytics tool. We don't know they went on our site. That's not just conversion, but also we don't even know that they've been there. But that's not all, because it would be too easy if we have just regulations and then browsers that are following. It is now ad blockers. Half of the worldwide population is using ad blockers. And now they have this new feature. In one click, you block GTM and analytics. And all the ads. I mean, ad blockers is for ads primarily, but now it's also about cookies, tracking, and everything. So potentially, and if those guys make it by default, it means that half of the worldwide, well, except China, I think it's they have this wall of they deal differently. But then it's just we don't know.
Chrome announced that in the next version, ad won't be working anymore. You need to become a paid user of like business Chrome. You have to pay for it to actually use the ad blockers that are working like amazing thing. So,
well, that's why I was saying like it's a war. It will really be a matter of you prevent me from doing that, while I will prevent user from using ad brokers in the first place. Then I had to put it, but it's really up to the website itself. But we can also block any analytics like at a server level. So what's left? What do we have that? So I just made the website. So users are coming, then you have a firewall potentially that could block part of the users. After that, you will have ad blocker that will remove part of the traffic. And then you will have one GDPR, but also any type of traffic prevention in the browser itself. And then what's left? We have those few peanuts that go there. It's like, and we try to make sense out of that. So I want just to try everyone to guess. So we have 3 different analytics tools. So I took the one that everyone uses basically. Google Ads, Facebook, Analytics. And then this is the user journey. So for 4 days, he started with clicking on an ad on Google. Then he came from an ad, but like in Facebook. Then organically, he came back direct by himself, and then he converted. Can you try, each of you, to guess what happened if this user is on Chrome? What happened is the same user to the same thing, but on Safari, and what happened for the same user that is in Europe and that didn't give any consent? Can you just spend like 1 minute trying to write down? Take pen, that's what I'm saying. I'll just give it a try, just to, it will actually help you to realize on what are the impacts on that. Well, you need to know a bit about attribution.
So it's past the 24-hour limit.
Well, today, if you go on Chrome and then you do those, like the 4 days in a row, and you have this journey, what happened in each of those tools if you were on Chrome, if you were on Safari, and if you were any browser, but you didn't give the consent.
Is Safari updated?
Yeah, the latest version, ITP 2.2. So it was released May. So just, I mean, not everyone has the latest version, because unless you take the update, it's just a question of months before. It's also a way of me knowing if you know attribution. Yeah, so you didn't, like a user that didn't give the consent. Well, each of the, yeah. So basically, Google Ads will only take in consideration the click. Facebook, the click on hit ad, and then Facebook Analytics will be the last non-direct click.
Do you use fast techniques?
Sorry?
Do you use fast techniques? Fast techniques?
The last what?
Techniques?
I don't know. Well, if you like, actually, like if no, so if you do like this journey, like one user, and you have all those tools in place, Google Analytics will just give to organic. Yeah, well, it's another whole discussion.
Is basically to, and Elena and Aaron will have to correct me because I'm going to miss that thing. It's basically a user journey that resulted in an action on your site, not just someone randomly.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, he did convert at the end of his journey. So
Day 1, day 2, day 3,
day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. So let's start with Google Ads. If we are on Chrome right now, what will happen is that regardless of all the other touch points, Google Ads said, yeah, that's thanks to me. So basically, we'll say it's thanks to the ad. So we'll be able to say that that conversion was because of the click. Now, the same thing on Safari is like no conversion. That click never converted because that day was another user. I could not know that it was the same user. So what happened is that every Safari users, if the conversion is not happening in those 24 hours, we won't be able to attribute that conversion to that user. So for all clients that have more than one touch point, which is all our clients, we will go do that. And then here, well, we just know the click, but we won't be even able to see that it came to analytics or our website. Here actually it's like it's empty. We won't have data here, no here, no here. Now we do Facebook. It will be the same. Facebook take all the credits when there is a click. So that conversion will be attributed to that click here on Chrome, but on Safari we won't be able to make the connection. So here that click didn't convert. Well, it actually did, but it didn't. Now on Google Analytics, by default, Google Analytics never consider direct. So in Google Analytics for Chrome users, we will consider that it's organic. But for Safari, we consider it's direct because we don't know that that part of the journey was the same user. And here, well, we don't even know that it came to that. Yeah, so you have the session here. So that's the reality of it. Tracking is dying, and it's just a question of months before a new feature will prevent the tracking to be working. We're good with, I like Oreos too. So right now there are a lot of discussion, but like a lot of how we could do the same thing but a bit differently. So you have like server-to-server tracking. Some people are like using like global variable within the browser. So instead of using cookie, using a variable, trying to do the same thing but differently. But the point is, we've been caught. We tried to do something that we were not supposed to do. Now we've been caught. We need to change. So right now, nobody has the solution. Even Google doesn't know what they will do in tomorrow. Actually. Today, it's already impacting everyone. The only thing is that people don't realize it yet, or because the bottom line hasn't been impacted too much, like especially in the rest of the world, because of those only 10% of users. But Safari is following, Chrome is following, Opera is following, which will be all the users. So let's now try to find a workaround and try to do the same thing but a bit differently, and then we will get caught and then we'll find something else. We need to embrace it. We have no idea of what's going to happen and how we will do it.